can't believe you're still pulling such childish, immature. Is that a mouse? What? Where? Are you ever going to not fall for that?
Hello everyone, and welcome to or welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to go over how I made my Adora jacket. I really hope you enjoy the video. Before I did anything else on this project, I made a mock-up. I'll show you the pattern pieces that I got from that mock-up in just a second, but first off, I just wanted to thank my roommates for working with me on this project. For all the pieces, there were 6 of them in total. And then I'm just going to cut them out of some red vinyl that I got from Joann's. I think I bought 2 yards of it, and I had to be really careful about my pin placement because all of the holes that I make in the fabric are going to be there forever.
Do they have pliers? Yeah, in my room. Do you think I can use them? Yeah. A pin just got stuck in my fabric. Oh my god. That's the second pin that's broken.
This project was definitely hard on my pins and needles. I broke a total of 3 pins and like 4 needles, but vinyl is always really tough on materials. As you can see here, I'm marking out the dart placement on the bodice and the back of the bodice so that I know where to sew those later.
I'm gonna have a freaking broken pin count. What are you at? It's the 3rd one. Oh my god.
I tried to be pretty careful while cutting out the fabric because I wasn't sure if I was going to mess up and need a little bit of extra, so I was pretty careful to use every little bit that I could off of the edges. And there we go, all of the pieces are cut out. I used the cream-colored fleece fabric as the lining for this jacket and the collar. Cutting the lining out was very similar to cutting out the other pieces, except I didn't have to worry so hard about where I put my pins.
You guys want to say hello? Danger.
Look at how I place this piece and see if you can tell me what's wrong right now.
No! That's fine. I'm gonna fix it. I just feel dumb.
It was a pretty simple fix, I just had to flip it over, but I would have enjoyed having a little bit more of that fabric where I hadn't cut it to work with. And there they are, most of the pieces for this project, all cut out. The first thing I sewed was all of the darts. They were pretty difficult to work with because the fabric didn't want to fold, and then I had to be very careful to make sure my stitches were getting through. When I was done with the darts, I simply just attached all the pieces of the main bodice and then tried it on my mannequin. The first test looked great, and I was super excited to see what the sleeves were going to look like with their points. Then I went on and sewed all of the lining pieces of the bodice exactly the same way I sewed the vinyl pieces. Here I'm starting work on the sleeves. They have a sleeve facing to make that cute cutout that Dora has in her sleeve. I had to stitch around the outside of this to add the facing, and then I top stitched the top.
Darn it! I just cut straight through a stitch that I just sewed.
smooth turn, I had to clip all of the corners, and I had to be really careful because I was using a pretty wide stitch on my sewing, so if I clipped any of the stitching, I had to go back and re-stitch it. When the sleeve facing was done, I simply sewed the sleeves together long ways, and then I enjoyed the fact that the little opening looked like a mouth.
Hello, can I help you?
Oh, thank you. After some shenanigans, I had to finally add the sleeve to the actual bodice, and let me tell you, this was really hard. This fabric has no stretch, so once I got to the armpit area, I just struggled so hard to get the stitching in. But it did turn out well, and then I did another test on my mannequin. It was getting pretty late in the night at this point, so we messed around a little bit. I hit Zoe with the tip of my jacket, and then I called it a day. For day 2, I had to put together the bottom of the jacket, the rest of the lining, and do the collar, which I needed to make a mock-up of. As you can see, I sewed the shape onto my previous mock-up and it looked pretty good, so I cut it out of my actual fabric. I did 2 layers of interfacing and 2 layers of the fleece to make the collar really stick up. I pinned and sewed around the outer edges of the collar, then carefully clipped the corners, and finally turned it out, being careful to make sure that both of the fleece was the outside pieces. I also made sure the points were pointy by sticking a scissor into them. And then I stitch it onto the actual jacket. The jacket was looking pretty good at this point, but it definitely still needed the bottom part to make it complete. I sewed a facing onto the bottom edge of the jacket, and then I carefully attached it to the full body, which was, again, really difficult because this fabric has zero stretch whatsoever. The next thing I sewed on was the zipper, but I lost the footage of that, so just trust me. And then I finally pinned and sewed on the lining, which I had to do very carefully and turn to the inside and then hand stitch so that it stayed down. Next, I finally got around to shortening the sleeves, which were about 2 inches too long. Next, I cut out a super long 3-inch wide strip for the cuffs. I measured this by putting it around my arm and cut it to the right length. Then I finally sewed it together, and I actually ended up top stitching it before putting it on the jacket to make my job a little bit easier later.
Oh yeah!
No!
Did you break them?
Again, I broke more than a couple needles on this project, but I was super happy with how it came out, as this was the last detail, and then some final stitching. Again, I'm so happy with how this turned out. I think it looks very similar to the one that Adora wears, and I'm just so excited to wear it.
Ketra, do you have to sit right there?
What? I'm not doing anything.
Hey, Adora. How's it hanging?